Okay, I just wanted to take a brief moment and just kind of reflect on some of the observations from these exercises. I think the one that I probably learned the most from in doing these, hopefully you liked as well, was the exercise one. And there were some interesting things with like what got inherited in terms of the color of the text and details like that. I just think it was a neat exercise, and I wanted to just kind of point out a couple things about it and a few of the others. The first thing I wanted to point out to you is I think that this is a great opportunity to go invest your time in reading this document if you did not do it earlier. I think that it might be hard to kind of understand all these concepts initially, but now that you've kind of like, you're in CSS mode, you should be able to read this thing, and it's totally worth your time. So pause the video, go read this. Totally worth it for you. All right, assuming you've just gone and done that, let's go ahead and talk about some other things that you saw and observed in this. One of the things that you saw is the way that we did comments in CSS. You'll notice that we always did comments with /* and */. That may have surprised you. You may have been expecting, since it was kind of the whole line, us to use the //, or if you come from a C-like language background, you would expect that to be a comment. It is not a comment in CSS. This is just a syntax error, right? That's just something that the CSS language decided to pick. They only support one type of comments, and they shall always be /* comments. The other thing, if you happen to have ever played with it much, comments in HTML are crazy. So they use their very own system, right? In order to make a comment in HTML, it has to start with this less than, exclamation point, hyphen, and then a space. I think the space may not be required. And then it has to close with a very similar closing as well. It's honestly, it's the craziest comment of any computer programming language I've ever seen is HTML. It's just how it works. No biggie. JavaScript, it's the only one that works the way you think, right? So it works with /* or //, very C-like thing. I just wanted to mention how comments worked. I didn't really know how to fit it in, but this seemed like as good a place of any. Another thing I wanted to point out is inherited text properties. So perhaps if you were working the example one, so primary selectors exercise one, you notice that there were some weird things going on with the text here, right? So when you first made this fourth item green, you probably got green on all these other guys as well. And so there kind of had to be two selectors on that one. There was one selector which made everybody in with the class fourth be green, and then there was another that made the li elements that were inside of it back to black, right? And so this was actually a really sneaky one. So that green got inherited. So you set it on one element, and then all of a sudden all of its children had that property as well. And why did that happen there? And if you were really observant, you may have noticed that with the boxes, it didn't happen that way, right? So the boxes, the borders were different. So it appears that some things get inherited to their children and some don't. And maybe if you thought about that, you're like, why does that happen? And that's through inherited text properties. So anything that's kind of text related gets inherited through. Anything that's layout related does not. So for example, here we've got any spans should be violet. So here we've got a span, but it turns out that this span has inside of him a div. And so no shock, this span child is magenta, but then you can also see his div inside of him also went magenta, and it didn't match the rule per se, because this rule was just for spans. But text properties are inherited to all their children. It's very nice they do this, because then you can set the font on the body, and just everybody in it will be that font, right? So they kind of had to do it for text properties. However, there are some things that are not inherited. So for example, if we put a red border on main, then you can see that it would get a red border, but all of its child elements don't also have a red border. It's just the one on main, which is exactly what you want in this case too. If you wanted all the children to have it, that's fine, you could do that, but you have to list them, right? So here I said, put a blue border on the footer, and also put it on the children that are inside the footer, and that totally works, but you do have to manually set that. So inherited properties versus non-inherited, the way you can think about it as to whether they're going to get inherited or not is how related to text are they versus are they related to layout. So here's some example of things that are yes, inheritance, and some of them might be surprising. I think visibility. That one's not really text related, but you can see why if you hide yourself, you kind of want to hide your children too. So there's a few that kind of break the rule, but this text related or layout related is the best way to think about it, right? And so these ones do not inherit through. So I just kind of wanted to mention those things. And we'll actually cut this video off here, right? So it's a really short video, but it's because I wanted to talk with you about some things you might have seen and experienced in the exercises, just to make some clarifications. All right, that's it. This time we're going to talk next time about specificity, which is a whole bunch of fun. We'll see you then. Bye.